Mookie Betts is now a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
The Dodgers had to do something.
This is a deal for Mookie Betts, and this is a deal that makes the Dodgers the favorites in the National League.
Not only did the Boston Red Sox trade Mookie Betts to the Los Angeles Dodgers, they might want to be the Dodgers. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio. Will Kane filling in for Trey Wingo today, presented by Progressive Insurance. And now we have ESPN Major League Baseball insider Jeff Passan in studio.
Oh, good. We'll get some good answers now.
Yeah. Jeff is Jeff wants to punch me in the face.
Why?
I don't know.
I don't want to punch
Do
him.
you want to punch him in the face?
No, I just said he has a punchable face.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, not wrong there. Yeah.
Rob Riggle action there, huh? Little Step Brothers.
I told him there's a long line. Buddy.
By the way,
go ahead.
That's true.
I am transfixed by your watch right now. It is shining in my eye.
I'm
Like
sorry.
we have all these
Wow.
lights above us here.
Is that like a sign tip
Just
right
some
now?
bling.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful watch.
The Astros are like, tell me more, Will Kane.
Jeff Passan here on Golic and Wingo. All right, man. So Mookie Betts and David Price are sent from Boston to Los Angeles, and your initial reaction is what?
It's what you said. The Red Sox want to be the Dodgers. And what I mean by that is this is like a harrowing, awful day in Boston right now, right? You can go and look back in history. Who have the Boston Red Sox developed? Who have been their stars? Mookie Betts was a better player than David Ortiz. Mookie Betts is a better player than Carl Yastrzemski. Mookie Betts is the best Boston Red Sox player since Ted Williams.
Whew.
And they traded him.
Mm.
And that hurts, and that's painful, and it hurts, and it's painful because these are the Red Sox, this team that has spent as much money as anybody over the last half decade. So why them? Why now? They're looking for financial flexibility, and when you hear something like that, you're like, boo-hoo, the Red Sox are making $500 million a year in revenue. What do they need financial flexibility for? Well, you look at what the Dodgers did and why they were able to pull off this trade, where they gave up 5 years of control of Alex Verdugo, who's a good player, and why they took on a pretty bad contract in David Price. They were able to do that because they have spent years now cutting bad deals from their payroll and developing players from within.
So do you think Mookie leaving is more they weren't willing to pay what was going to have to be paid, or Mookie Betts wanted to test free agency and he was going to give other teams a chance and there was a fear they might not have a shot at him?
Yes.
Wait, so would they have paid you said we have the cut of you saying $400 million.
Would they have paid $400 million?
No.
Okay.
I don't think they were in a position to do that. Now, they could prove me wrong in November or December of 2020 when Mookie Betts hits free agency, and depending on what happened with the Red Sox this year and other moves that they've made, they can take a look and say, you know what? Turns out we can't afford him because Chris Sale came back from this elbow injury that he had, and the $150 million that we paid him is not being flushed down the toilet. And Nathan Eovaldi stayed healthy. And the fact that we're paying him $51 million for the next 3 years is not sunk cost. And Xander Bogaerts played like he does, and Rafael Devers did what he did. And maybe a couple guys in our farm system stepped up, and that gives us some more confidence and faith that we're going to be able to bring cheaper guys up to balance out those big contracts. But the $400 million, and Mookie Betts will get that if he has a Mookie Betts-type season, is a really big number that very few teams can pay. The Dodgers are one of them. And why the Dodgers made this deal is not just for 2020 when they have World Series aspirations, when they're coming off a 106-win season and add a guy who's worth 7-8 wins above replacement every single season. They're doing this so they can say to him at the end of the year, you saw our culture, you saw our clubhouse, you saw how we're positioned to win for the next decade. Be with us.
Jeff Passan with us in studio here on Golic and Wingo. And so you talked about that, the winning that's going on with the Dodgers, and the Red Sox want to be the Dodgers. What's the one chief difference that's going to happen here? I know we talked about this before you got in studio, but the Dodgers somehow managed to pull off winning while going on with this. How long are we talking about the Red Sox potentially having to take lumps here?
It's nice to be in a division when a dynastic team like the Giants starts getting old. And when a team like the Diamondbacks is sort of trying to rebuild on the fly, and when the Padres, who have stunk forever, are just starting to get into it, and the Colorado Rockies are just sitting there on a Peloton, not moving. Like that's the state of their division right now. The Boston Red Sox are in a division with a New York Yankees team that just signed the best pitcher in the world for $324 million. A Tampa Bay Rays team that somehow, with a payroll like the size of the contract Mookie Betts is going to get per year, manages to churn out talent like nobody else year after year. And with this 97-win team and this great pitching that they have, also have the best prospect in baseball in Wander Franco, who's a shortstop, who's 19, who's going to be up this year and is going to be an absolute superstar. So you're talking with two teams right now that are better than the Boston Red Sox, even with Mookie Betts. And I think Chaim Bloom, their new chief baseball officer, saw that and bit down really hard on his tongue. Because you know what? When your first move running a franchise is to trade a homegrown, true blue, second best player in the world franchise type guy, that is a difficult thing to do. And that's something that in the end is going to be a big part of his legacy. And I know this isn't about him, but man, you're coming up to Boston from Tampa Bay and you're trading Mookie Betts. Who are you? What are you doing to my team?
ESPN Major League Baseball insider Jeff Passan in studio giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. I want to get to the Dodgers side of this equation in just a second, but one thing you said I found interesting is one of the reasons it's so hard for Red Sox fans today is it's not who they thought they were. That's what I was picturing. You were talking about identity. Like, the Red Sox are a team that pays other people's stars to come to them, not lose stars they're afraid of paying. And so it's like a soul-searching moment for Red Sox fans.
Okay, so I'm just going to play the hypothetical out here. The Red Sox are looking at this season like I just put it out there. You know, they're going to be fighting for a wild card spot, and they're probably not better on paper than the Yankees or the Rays. Then you've got three teams in the American League Central in the Chicago White Sox, the Minnesota Twins, and the Cleveland Indians, who all have various strengths. The Twins lineup is absurd. The Indians pitching staff is absurd. The White Sox have gone out this offseason, gotten Yasmani Grandal, Dallas Keuchel. They have fantastic prospects coming up. They also get to play the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers 38 times this year. I understand that if you're the Boston Red Sox, you have to play the Baltimore Orioles 19 times. And oh, by the way, out west, you've still got the Houston Astros, who, cheating or not, are a really good team. And the Oakland A's, who were a playoff team last year, who are only going to be getting better. So that path to the playoffs for the Red Sox is difficult. Then when you get to the playoffs, you have one game, and you might lose that game. And if you keep Mookie Betts for the entire season, lose the playing game, the wild card game, and then lose him in free agency, you get back a crappy draft pick. So would you rather have a right fielder in Alex Verdugo, who's going to be there for 5 years, and a guy in Brusdar Graterol, who worst case scenario is going to be your closer? Like, he's got a really big arm. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have a fourth-round draft pick?
Talking to Jeff Passan here on Golic and Wingo. So I guess another question we'd have to ask for the Red Sox who don't have Mookie Betts. They don't have a manager either. And we also don't know what their punishment is going to be by Major League Baseball. When are we getting answers to those?
You know, the hope for the punishment was going to be before spring training. Tough to see that at this point, since, like, I'm going down to Florida on Saturday. I mean, spring training has come very close. And I say that, and we're laughing because you're right. They still don't have a manager. They have started the process of cutting down managerial candidates. And so I think sometime this week, I would hope sometime this week, the Red Sox are going to name a new manager. And the question is, are they going to go with someone who's on the inside right now, or are they going to go with an outside candidate like Pipe Urueta, who's the bench coach for the Arizona Diamondbacks? And logic just tells me that even if the better candidate is from the outside, you almost have to go with someone internal right now. Like, I remember when Alex Cora took over the Boston Red Sox a couple of years ago, he flew around the country meeting with his players, getting to know them, getting that rapport, that relationship, that trust with them, all before spring training. Can you imagine going into a spring training where you don't know people in the organization? I'm not just talking your players. I'm talking the front office people. I'm talking the clubhouse people, having to build all of those relationships while, oh, by the way, managing the Boston Red Sox in that media market with a team that just traded its best player. Like, that is a difficult proposition for anybody, no matter how talented you are.
Jeff Passan with us in studio, our ESPN Major League Baseball insider. Jeff, the other side of this, and Will mentioned before, is the Dodgers, who there has been this mounting pressure to go out and get a World Series and get it done. You stack MVPs in successive years with Cody Bellinger, the reigning NL MVP, in all of this. Do they have to win it this year? I mean, if it goes through this year and they don't win it, and Mookie Betts doesn't have a Mookie Betts year in all this, are they still paying him that kind of money on the back end? Like, how volatile is this situation now?
It's interesting for the Dodgers because they didn't need Mookie Betts to win the National League West. And if you are a baseball executive with any sense, you realize that October is a crapshoot. You know, Billy Beane famously said in Moneyball, our bleep doesn't work in October. And, you know, it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing because nobody knows what the secret sauce is to win in October. I mean, the Washington Nationals were in the National League Division Series against the Dodgers because Trent Grisham overran a ball in the outfield in the wild card game. That's why they made it. So they were there on account of someone doing something he typically does not do. Then they went to a fifth game and were facing a guy in Clayton Kershaw who's going to be a first ballot, no doubt, probably 100% Hall of Famer. And they beat him. And so if the Washington Nationals can take that path to winning a World Series, winning 4 games on the road in the World Series,
right?
How do you know that this great team that the Dodgers have right now, and it is a great team that the Dodgers have right now, how do you know that they're not going to lose in October? You just don't. And so this is a calculated risk by them, but a risk that goes back to what we were saying earlier in the conversation. They feel like they can take this risk because they put themselves in a position to eat $27 million that Mookie Betts is going to be paid this year, and to give up a talent like Alex Verdugo, who they drafted, developed, and now we'll see play effectively for the next half decade in Boston.
While anything can happen in October, Vegas thinks it's overwhelmingly likely it's Yankees and Dodgers. He's Jeff Passan, ESPN's Major League Baseball insider, and we appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
Always appreciate your time.
All right, coming up, Andy Reid and the Chiefs will take a victory parade in Kansas City today. So where does Reid rank among the all-time greats? It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio. A dynasty, it's 2 to 3 years.
Let's not be prisoners of the moment. They're in the window.
Right out the gate, everybody like, oh, he's the greatest ever. I think he's trending in that direction, though.
Yes, I did. Let's go look at I'm a professional. I'm a professional.
Hit him.
Turn your mic on.
Yes.
You
Yes.
are
Golic and Wingo.
Now
We
you're
did
truly
it.
part of the group.
Welcome,
Dead,
friend.
man. I mean, I thought we had commercial and
I
everything.
know.
What happened?
We just
you
sat-
literally just turned to me and go, we're on.
We just sat there and looked at you and said, we're going to get him this
You know
time.
what, Will? If it's any consolation, we've been doing this show for 2 years,
Yeah.
and that happens on a near daily basis.
And this is
around
how
here.
unprofessional we are. We just watched you do
You
it.
did. I go, go ahead, Golic, and you didn't. You just sat there quiet. No.
Monsters.
We all got to rip the Band-Aid off at some point, right?
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio. Will Kane filling in for Trey Wingo today. And guess who's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line? It's 2-time Pro Bowl running back of, well, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's Brian Westbrook on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, brought to you by Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. What's up, Brian?
Well, I know you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. You don't have to introduce me like that. When you say the Philadelphia Eagles, you should say the 2017 World Champion Philadelphia Eagles. Be happy about it.
You know what? I actually, being a former Eagle myself, I should have done that introduction. Brian, I apologize. I apologize for letting this
Involuntary.
Cowboy fan introducing you.
Well, I appreciate that. I just happened to be tuning in to your show yesterday, and as soon as I turned the TV on, I saw Mike Jr. doing his best Shakira dance, and I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah,
It
you
was
and us
amazing
both.
to see.
Yeah.
It was a lot. That is someone that came up watching the Brian Westbrook era Eagles. That means a lot, Brian, that you would compliment my dance moves in such a way.
I don't think he complimented
No,
him.
he definitely did. Don't worry about
He said
the
he
specifics
noticed
of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian Westbrook here on Golic and Wingo. All right, Brian, as we pointed out, as you so happily pointed out, you were a Philadelphia Eagle. You've played under Andy Reid. Andy Reid's now a Super Bowl champion. I don't know that he needed this, Brian, to validate who he's been. Not to me, at least, even as a Cowboy fan. But to a lot of people, I think it was necessary. So where is Andy Reid in the all-time coaching hierarchy?
Well, I mean, I think you have Bill Belichick, and he's kind of in a room and a place of his own. And then right after that, you talked about the success that Andy Reid has had. I mean, he has to be right up there with some of the best coaches, especially after winning the Super Bowl this season. But just remember where the Philadelphia Eagles were pre-Andy Reid. They were a 3-13 football team. They were just not very good. Andy Reid comes in his first year. They win 5 games. The next year, they go on to win 11 games. And then, 5 NFC championship appearances and a Super Bowl appearance for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, you kind of get lost out of Philadelphia, moves out to Kansas City. And the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot of people forget, they were 2-14 before Andy Reid got there. Andy Reid brings in organization and discipline and attention to detail. They go 11-5 his following year, make the playoffs. And now over the last 2 years, of course, they won a Super Bowl this year. But last year they were in an AFC championship game and really an offside penalty away from being in the Super Bowl last year. So, when I look at Andy in the course of his career, in 21 years, he's only had 3 losing seasons, which is impressive right there. And so I certainly think he's a Hall of Fame coach. I personally believe that he was a Hall of Fame coach prior to winning the Super Bowl. But you add that ring to your resume, it just makes him one of the best coaches that has ever lived.
100% agree with that. As we're talking to Brian Westbrook with the Eagles from 2002 to 2009. But so all around football, we all think that. But, Brian, let's go to Philadelphia. So I played in the era of Buddy Ryan, and Buddy Ryan absolutely revered in Philadelphia, especially if we played on the defensive side of the ball. You loved it. But we never won a playoff game under Buddy, and he was beloved. And you just rattled off what Andy Reid did in Philadelphia. And, I mean, it doesn't seem like he got the respect there from the fans, which shocks me because he won way more than Buddy did, who was beloved there. So not taking anything away from Buddy Ryan, why do you think in Philadelphia the feeling was that way toward Andy?
Well, I think when you look at the way things ended in Philadelphia, with the team not really responding to the coach, with Andy, of course, not winning any of those Super Bowl opportunities. And, of course, when you go to the NFC Championship game 5 times, you're hoping to make the Super Bowl a couple of times and maybe win a Super Bowl from time to time. And Andy just wasn't able to get it done in Philadelphia from that way. And then you look at things that happened to the latter part of his tenure there, the dream team that kind of fizzled out there in Philadelphia. Then his last year just wasn't very good. I think you kind of add to that, and this is just how Philadelphia is, that he was a coach that would go there in front of the media and say, it's all my fault. Don't blame the players. I'll handle the players myself, but put all the blame on me. And at some point, the media and the fans began to say, you know what, that's not good enough. That's not the answer that we want. We want you to put blame on some players. We want you to point the finger. And Andy was never that type of guy. And so because of that, a lot of the fans and some of the media members kind of turned on him, especially when things began not going very well toward the latter part of his tenure there. And so I think a lot of people at this point in Philadelphia are just saying, well, he won a Super Bowl, but he wasn't a head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles when he won it. And we kind of, are looking at him sideways. But as a former player, I appreciate everything that Andy was able to do there in Philadelphia, especially for my career. I understand the mentality of a head coach, and I also understand the thought process that I don't want to throw any of my players underneath the bus. And that's the type of coach that Andy was. And, again, that's why so many of his former players absolutely love him.
Talking to Brian Westbrook, former Philadelphia Eagles running back with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You mentioned Andy Reid, now a Super Bowl champion, and we see that relationship with him and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes' performance in the Super Bowl was the MVP moment of the week, brought to you by Sport Clips. Cut the weight. Download the new Sport Clips Haircuts app and check in. And you mentioned all that, Brian, and I really wanted to get into that more of why it seems like all these players are so invested in Andy Reid's success. You saw Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all of these guys so vocal about their praise for Andy Reid, day to day, week in and week out, not just the moments we see on the outside. What is it like playing for Andy Reid coached football teams?
Well, the thing that I think every player in the NFL actually wants, whether they know it or not, is discipline. They want consistency, and they want to do things the right way. And I just think every player, for the most part, wants to do that. And Andy Reid gives you the opportunity to be an adult because he's not going to overcoach you. He's not going to give you a bunch of rules that you can't follow. He's going to say, you got a couple rules. Be respectful and be on time. And if you can do those things, that's a good start, and we can take it from there. And when you look at the players that he's been around, you have to say that there's been some great personalities, there's been some great players, and Andy has allowed them to be themselves. And to many players, that's just exactly what you need. The other part about Andy Reid is that the best coaches that I've ever had, Andy Reid included, the late, great Morgan Wooten, the high school basketball coach included, they're coaching their sport and actually coaching you about life at the same time. And if you can just think about that, think about how right now, I'm 40 years old, I have 3 kids, that I'm telling them some of the same things that Andy Reid told me as a running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, that's kind of a scary thing. It's kind of one of those things your parents get smarter as you get older type of things, because Andy Reid was able to coach. He was able to teach. He was able to do all those things as a father figure for so many guys in the NFL for a long time and be able to coach you at football at the same time. And that was kind of special. One of those things that many players around the league that have played for Andy certainly appreciate.
All right, it's Brian Westbrook, former Philadelphia
Hold on.
Eagle.
Just stop. Brian Westbrook, we appreciate your time. The 2-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro, Philadelphia Eagle Hall of Famer, Philadelphia Eagles 75th anniversary team as well. Brian Westbrook, we so appreciate your time coming on the Golic and Wingo Show. We are humbled at your appearance on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye, Brian.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, man. I wasn't going to let you denigrate him anymore as a Cowboy fan that you are.
Denigrating anybody around here except for you. All right. Now the Super Bowl is over. Who are the top 5 franchises in NFL history? Guess what? I've got a list. Coming up on Golic and Wingo.
A list. It's Wednesday. There's got to be a list. Okay, also, when your hair needs a man break, it's time for Sport Clips MVP Haircut Experience. What is that experience, you may ask? It's a man break, not just a haircut. Invigorating scalp massage with tea tree shampoo. Legendary hot steam towel. Great haircut every time, that's guaranteed. Sport Clips also has TVs playing sports all the time. Over 1,800 locations nationwide. Your next haircut now is a shortcut. Introducing the Sport Clips Haircuts app. Now the cut you want is just a tap away. Download today and check in. Sport Clips. You choose the cut. They cut the weight. Back after this. Golic and Wingo.